All right, welcome to Bet the Edge on Wednesday, September 14th. I'm Jay Croucher. Here's Drew Dinsick. Thanks to everyone watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If that's how you are consuming this, we are going to jump in today to a lot of double-digit spreads or near double-digit spreads, and then we're going to give a look at two of the lines that we think are going to move the most between now and Sunday. Drew, how's it going, mate?
That's going well. It's been a quiet week market-wise in the NFL, which is unusual. Usually week 2 is volatility, overreactions, underreactions, market bouncing back and forth, but it has been, to use a $10 word, it's been quiescent.
Wow, look at you with the quiescent. Very good. All right, let's jump into these double-digit spreads. But firstly, you said it's been a quiet week with line movements and stuff. There is one market I just quickly wanted to just touch on, and we don't have to spend too much time on it, but you can get Patrick Mahomes at like plus 800 out there to win MVP, and that's not going to stick around for too much longer. I would make him the favorite in that market over Josh Allen. Now, the Chiefs are not double-digit favorites this week. The Bills are, and we'll get into that game. But here are some of the big lines. So the Rams, minus 10.5, home to the Falcons. Broncos, minus 10, home to the mighty Houston Texans. The Packers, minus 10 on Sunday Night Football against the Bears. The Bills, minus 10 against the Titans. And then the Niners-Seahawks game, which did touch 10. Now it's down more to 9.5, 9. Which of these lines is most interesting to you?
If I had to get involved with one, it would be Bears-Packers, and I'm looking for the dog there. Ultimately, wow. I think because this is and again, like, I'm not dying to bet any of these dogs, 10-point dogs week 2. That's, it's asking a lot. It's also funny because 4 out of the 5 double-digit favorites are 0-1. They're looking for their first win of the season. But at the same time, like, it doesn't really matter if they cover. They just want to get a win. And, they're the better teams. They're at home. They should find success. But I have trouble finding at this point in the season, considering sort of the vibe around the NFL generally is extended preseason. I'm not sure who's covering with margin, who's winning with margin this week. So I think it's dog or pass in general across all of these plays. But the Bears interest me the most at 10, and it's because I think that total is a little too high. This looks like a game, in my opinion, that's going to be won or lost via field goal. I'm not in love with the Bears offense. I didn't see anything from them that suggested that they're going to get over 13 points here against the Packers, but I think the Packers offense still is an enormous question mark. Last year, I think a lot of people looked at last year's week 2 result where they bounced back like that from just an ugly week 1. They came out in week 2 and they were incredible offensively against the Lions. I'm not seeing that same team. I'm not seeing that same roster. There are still tons more questions that need to be answered about what they ultimately intend to do scheme-wise. Really, the only player on this offense who's carrying his weight right now is A.J. Dillon. And that's not going to be good enough to really get it done against a Bears defense that I think may be a little bit better than we expected heading into this season. So they have some talented players, particularly at the cornerback position. The biggest issue with the Packers offense last week, in my opinion, was coverage sacks. And if you can't get separation against the likes of the cornerbacks that Minnesota was trotting out there in a controlled environment on a fast track, I don't know how you're doing it outdoors against a better set of cornerbacks that the Bears operate with. So I think that one's going to be a closer game than market, and I would look for Bears at 10 if you can get it flat.
Yeah, sneakily competent Bears defense. Eddie Jackson out there partying like it's 2018 again. Dominic Robinson and Jaquan Brisker, 2 of their rookies, who I think are kind of fringe dark horse candidates for Defensive Rookie of the Year, just because it's a weak class initially, at least from what we've seen. They might see their odds shorten a little bit. I do think with the Packers that I wouldn't sound the alarm too much, just because no Bakhtiari, no Jenkins, no Allen Lazard. We'll see if we get those guys back this week. If all 3 of them are back, then Packers, if it's under 10, I wouldn't mind that. But until we get a bit of clarity there, and until Christian Watson stops dropping walk-in 75-yard touchdowns, I can't be too excited about taking that Packers offense laying potentially double digits. Okay, let's pivot now to Bills-Titans. I think that this is a line where when you look at it, it jumps out as just a little bit jarring because the Titans were the 1 seed last year. They are relatively healthy and they're 10-point dogs. But to me, the thing with this game against the Bills is that we just need to stop thinking about the Titans as a team that won the 1 seed last year. That was fraudulent is a bit harsh, but it was fraudulent. And you need to look at them more as a 9-8 type of team last year that got additional wins by going 6-2 in 1-score games. So I think this line is pretty fair, and I might be interested in Buffalo if it does go back to 9.5. What say you?
Okay, that's music to my ears because my MVP favorite is Josh Allen. We're going to have this running gag going on all season, I think, because I'm not adding Mahomes, even though you think he ought to be favorite right now. Just got to stick with my guy here. And I worry a little bit because he has been solved to a degree by Tennessee's defense last couple seasons. You look at, in general, how those matchups went, particularly 2 years ago. It was one-way Tennessee. Last year, it was a closer game, but ultimately Buffalo could not get the game-winning drive put together. And so Tennessee has had some very, decent success against Josh Allen last 3 times out, actually. And so a little bit worried about Buffalo. But if you think they're a bet at 9.5, that makes me feel a little bit better about my MVP.
Okay. Yeah, you keep riding with Josh Allen. I'll ride with Patrick Mahomes. You can have your 2 turnovers every game, and I'll have my 5 touchdowns. All right, Drew, in case you missed it, Matthew Berry has a new show. It's on NBC. It's on Peacock. It's the Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry. I am the co-host of that. I'll be on that in about an hour. Matthew is back with NBC and Roto World, doing what he does best, rolling out his love-hate list, breaking down who to start and sit, and much more. Also, plenty of betting chat, particularly on the Sunday show, which is at 11 a.m. Eastern until 1 p.m. Eastern on Peacock, really getting into the props in particular, also talking lines and totals and all the late movement. So check out the show weekdays, Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern on Peacock, or listen to the show in podcast form wherever you download and subscribe. Now, we're going to jump into a couple of the weirder week 2 games. These are the 2 games that certainly I've just got the most texts about, like, why is the line this? So those 2 games are Patriots, Steelers, and Cardinals-Raiders. So let's start with the mighty New England Patriots after they put up 7 points against the Dolphins. They are minus 1.5 point favorites in Pittsburgh. That was it was pick for a while, and then Mac Jones with the news that he's going to play. It moved back to minus 1.5. I think most people in the public would have thought that the Steelers would be favored here. What's your read on this game?
I played the Patriots. Count me as a believer that Belichick will have some things figured out here beyond, but that's not even the major angle. The major angle is the Pittsburgh Steelers defense lost TJ Watt. He matters. And they spent almost 45 minutes on the field against the Cincinnati Bengals. That has a potential to really, really cause some immediate attrition. We're early in the season. These guys aren't necessarily in game shape yet. And the fact that they had to, turn around off after such a physical game against the Bengals team where they really tested those guys, I think in general, that opens up an opportunity for the Patriots. If they tack back a bit into sort of the old way we saw them do things, a little bit more physical approach, try to run the ball down their throats a bit, I think New England may look a little bit more competent offensively in this game. The adjustments are there. They just need to tack into it. If they don't, then I'm going to be asking more serious questions about what's going on with Bill Belichick. But, the fact that Mac Jones just had spasms, it's not a true injury, that doesn't really scare me. They lose Ty Montgomery, who was a decent sort of chess piece, but doesn't really spook me. The loss of TJ Watt though is important. Pittsburgh not getting those havoc plays is going to be a factor, and I think New England can win this game somewhere in the ballpark of 24-20.
Okay. Yeah. Initially, I like the Steelers, but diving into the numbers a little bit more, Mac Jones was the unluckiest quarterback in the NFL in week 1 with drops, had a tipped interception in the end zone that Xavier Howard knocks away from Devontae Parker. So I think there are a few things pointing in the Patriots' direction. The Steelers needed 5 turnovers from Joe Burrow and 2 missed chip shot field goals just to be able to win that game in overtime. They're not very good. Okay, we have a comment next on how to bet Bengals Cowboys. How are you betting this game, Drew? Because it's up to 8, sticking towards 8.5.
Wow.
Is the difference between Cooper Rush and Dak Prescott really 8 points?
It's not. But you're seeing an aggressive market correction on who the Cowboys are in totality, which is not good. And I think this is an overreaction. But Bengals shake off some rust. They should look cleaner. They, presumably have some protection plans in place to keep Micah Parsons from ruining, Joe Burrow's season. But I think rather than bet that game, particularly since the number's gotten away, you take a look at Bengals to win the AFC North at 3-1. I think that's a bet. Yep,
I like that. Yeah, I think the Bengals they are undervalued at the moment because they lost that game. They shouldn't have lost that game to Pittsburgh. They shot themselves in the foot 5 different times, 7 different times if you're combining turnovers and missed chip shot field goals. So I'm with you there that the Bengals and the Ravens weren't ultra impressive against the Jets. I mean, they got the job done, but it wasn't an incredible performance. And I agree that, it's jarring seeing that line move so much. And it's not just the quarterback situation. It's that the Cowboys defense isn't going to be what it was last year, losing Randy Gregory, Javon Curse now out as well, and that offensive line is totally decimated. Thank you for that question, Kenny. Now, let's jump into Cardinals-Raiders. I think this is probably the most jarring line on the board to the public, where I think before the season, if you'd asked who's the better team between the Cardinals and the Raiders, I think there would have been a lot of shrugs. Like, they're pretty similar level of teams, similar win totals as well. Now the Las Vegas Raiders are 5.5-point favorites. 24 hours ago, this was 3.5. It's ticking up, and I think what this is telling us, also, read this in conjunction with the fact that the Chiefs moved from 4.5-point favorites against the Cardinals up to 6.5. So that is the market telling us that the Arizona Cardinals are a complete disaster. But at the same time, can you stomach betting the Raiders -5.5?
I cannot. I've danced all around this game. I've come at it from every different angle and thought, well, maybe I think at this moment there's not an edge on the side. It probably ought to be 4.5 by my numbers. I think the total is maybe a hair high. The Raiders did show us under McDaniels a propensity to play a little slower, a little more methodical. And if the Cardinals, I think the game really hinges on what do the Cardinals do defensively relative to what they did against the Chiefs. They blitz Mahomes. They got burned. If they come out and run that same against Carr with this offensive line out there, they probably keep the Raiders under 20 points. And at that point, then Arizona's live and this total isn't coming, it's not sniffing 51.5. So if they pivot away from that plan because it didn't work against Mahomes, then all of a sudden this is a different handicap. But I think if they stick to their guns and they go blitz heavy against Carr, then this is going to be one of the uglier games of the week, and 51.5 feels like a steal.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals, on what they showed in week 1, they might have the worst pass defense in the league, which makes sense given they have no cornerbacks whatsoever. So that coheres. It's not just that they went up against Patrick Mahomes. I think they're going to have a bad pass defense generally. JJ Watt didn't play week 1. We'll see if he comes back in week 2. But the reason I would stay away from the Raiders here is that Derek Carr was horrific against the Chargers. And it's understood that he was bad in that game, but I think he was even worse than his underlying numbers. You look at, by PFF, he had 5 turnover-worthy plays. So he could have had 5 picks. And then we're thinking about that team a little bit differently, I think. Okay, now before we get into a couple of bets that we're looking at making at the moment, just a reminder, Drew, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen in college football, Major League Baseball, on the NASCAR circuit, and in the Premier League. There is also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the correct outcome between the Bears and the Packers in our Sunday Night 7 contest. It's a lot. It's not bad. All right, Drew. Dolphins, Ravens. I believe this is where your pick is coming from. Who do you like at 3.5?
I'm sticking to your kind of concept, really, of the Ravens not being all that impressive. Yes, they won that going away. Yes, they didn't even have to they didn't have to play their aces. They just did it with the vanilla. And that's good. Like, that's the way you want to beat the Jets, especially on the road in week 1. However, there has been a common theme to how you defeat this iteration of a defensive roster for the Ravens, and that is with speed. Speed kills these guys. And the Miami Dolphins are bringing absolute spades in speed to this game. I think that this offense is going to look quite good up against a Ravens team that is now missing a cornerback. If you missed that news, Fuller done for the season with an ACL. They are in, and by the way, he played 80 out of the 84 snaps for this Ravens defense in week 1. He was an integral part of what they were doing to stop the pass. Pass rush, not especially noteworthy from this Ravens crew in general. And I think the Miami offense is going to have better opportunities in this game to really put up some serious points. And then you flip the script here. Baltimore's O-line, still some serious questions about that group in my mind. Ronnie Stanley may be back, but I still would like to see him get some game reps before I'm expecting him to give me a full game of outstanding pass protection. And I thought the Miami pass rush against the Patriots was very, very live. Way more than I expected, considering the fact that Brian Flores moved on. It seems like Josh Boyer, who has stayed on as the defensive coordinator, really has a good grasp on what to do with those guys in that room. And so I think Miami ought to be, under a field goal here. The fact that you're getting +3.5, I feel like is one of the better bets on the board as we speak. And I'm pretty heavily invested in this Dolphins crew at this point.
Yeah, I would be surprised if this closes 3.5. I think if I was betting on it, I would guess it closes 3 and with potential to go to 2.5 as well. It's difficult to read into previous matchups, but Dolphins 22-10 on that Thursday night game last season. They just blitzed the living daylights out of Lamar and made him look horrible. And yeah, the Ravens down to a third string tackle. It's not great against this Dolphins defensive line. Also, the thing I'm going to be looking for is Lamar Jackson didn't run the ball against the Jets. And is that going to be a little kind of sneaky thing throughout the season with his contract on the line and everything? I know the game script didn't really dictate that he needed to run against the Jets, but that would be something that I would just kind of closely monitor looking, because that's what makes that offense special. If Lamar's not running, then all of a sudden it becomes very much an offense where Devin Duvernay is the wide receiver too, which isn't great for a team that wants to win the Super Bowl.
Miami safety, absolutely nasty. Perfect matchup for Mark Andrews. What's your gut say about the Lamar running thing? It's in his head?
Well, a little bit. I think early on, particularly, I don't think we're going to see him running the ball, fewer than 7 times every single game. But it's just something to monitor. Where if this is another thing, where if he runs the ball 4 or 5 times and that's it against the Dolphins, I think that's something that you have to look at and can also take advantage of with his under rushing prop, which is 59.5 against the Jets. So just something to monitor a little bit. Now, my bet is Bucks Saints. Now this line is moving, but there is still, if you hunt, you can find some -2.5 Bucks. I would be shocked if the line closes Bucks -2.5. Expect that it will close at least 3, probably 3.5. It's a little bit lost in the wash, but the Saints are pretty bad for 3.5 quarters against the Atlanta Falcons. That defense, which was projected as a top 5 unit pretty much across the board, gave up 26 points to Marcus Mariota, 25 touches for Cordarrelle Patterson. So I'm not sure that unit is going to be as fearsome. And then Jameis Winston, who admittedly was great in the fourth quarter, he was horrible for 3 quarters. So I'm not buying into this Saints team. I think this Bucks team, while they have their own injuries on offense, particularly with Chris Godwin's going to be out, we know about the problems on the offensive line. I think this defense has a chance to be the best in football. Dak's injury has become the story out of that Sunday night game. Cowboys were awful before Dak went down, still putting up 3 points. So I think that this Tampa Bay defense is going to smother the Saints. I don't care that Tampa is 0-4 in their last 4 regular season matchups against New Orleans. Those are all isolated situations. One of those games was Tom Brady's first ever game in Tampa Bay. The different teams are going up against different quarterbacks as well. So I'm not concerned about that. I don't think that New Orleans have some secret sauce that solves Tom Brady and the Bucs offense. So I suspect that the Bucs might be an ugly game, but I think they have enough. Brady looked fine to me against the Cowboys. Julio Jones looked a lot better than expected. Russell Gage still there, and they've still got Mike Evans. So I think they have enough weapons, and I think they will cover 2.5. Drew, what do you think?
We're reading from the same script here. I don't know who bet the Saints yesterday to get us that 2.5. Thank you. Happy to be on the other side of that one. And my major, again, you don't want to overreact to 1 week, but we came into week 1 kind of with that thesis that the Bucs defense was a top 5 unit, potentially top 1. And everything I saw kind of crystallized that opinion. They are healthy. They were not healthy for a lot of last year, particularly in the secondary. They have added important pieces, and they have multiple looks that they can give you on top of the fact that they're going up against an offensive line that I have questions about. This looks like one-way traffic Bucs in my mind, and I think this is going to be a one of those that we scratch our heads later in the season. Like, you remember when the Bucs closed under a field goal against the Saints? Like, it has that kind of whiff to it, you know.
Just quickly, are the Bucs the number 1 defense in your ratings at the moment?
Yeah, right now, yes.
Me too. Yeah. Okay. That's it. We're done, Drew. Don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thank you for those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to subscribe and rate us. We are done. We'll be back tomorrow.